Here's another mic test. Hopefully I sound great, maybe a little bit like Sam
then.
Harris.
Oh my goodness, look at this crowd. There's like 200 plus people or so. We're packed. This is amazing. Thank you everybody for being here. Before we get started, just give a few overview details about this event. For those that don't know, we are doing a series of community roundtables. And so there was one a couple of months ago. We've got this one today with Philip, and there's several more coming up that we'll be announcing very shortly. So lots more to come. For today's session, we are going to be monitoring text chat. Please note, of course, that we're not going to be able to answer all questions at once. There's a lot that will be flowing quickly. We are trying to monitor it and keep up. We also recognize this format does have some limitations, so please be patient. We'll try to address as much as we can from the topics that come up, both from the chat in real time and also pre-submitted questions. We do ask everybody as a favor, please do keep your mic muted. Voice is obviously on, and we do expect we'll be taking questions from the audience in real time as well at designated times. So please keep it muted in the meantime. So earlier in this week, we did invite the community to submit their questions in advance. So we're going to start today with some of the pre-submitted questions. And again, we'll also try to address some of the ones that come in chat as well. So this is a roundtable format. We're here not just to respond, but to also listen and take in your real-time feedback in ways that we can improve and learn from your experiences in Second Life. Support questions should be directed to our support portal. We'll put that link in chat shortly. There's also a feedback portal. We'll provide that link as well. And we also want to remind people, lastly, that there are recurring user group meetups and worlds. And there's a wiki page that we'll share shortly where we direct you to if you want to meet with small, intimate meetings with some of the Lindens on each respective team. So again, one more reminder, please mute your mic. And now let's get started. Let's give a big virtual welcome to Second Life founder and now CTO, Philip Rosedale.
Thank you, Brett. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes? The text is scrolling by quite quickly. Thank you very much for having me. I'm going to risk the render gods and respectfully turn as I say hello to everyone, though I may not bow. I want to see all your faces, and it's great to see everyone. I am in full transparency on, let's see, a MacBook Pro at about 15 frames per second right now as I turn in circles. Nice to see everyone. As Brett said, we're going to do this as best we can in this Four Corners open community format. I'm going to answer some of the questions that you submitted. There were about 100, and I'm going to answer I think 20 or so of them quickly, and then we'll shift over to conversation with everyone here. As Brett said, he's monitoring the chat. I'm going to do my best to read the chat while I'm speaking, although I will, not see all of it, and then we'll take some discussion at the end. Well, at the high level, as Brett said, I am back full-time at the lab as our CTO and also as a board member. I couldn't be having more fun. There's obviously a lot of work to do, and I'm in the middle of it. I'm a little tired. It's been really since about the beginning of October that I've been heads down full-time, coming back and trying to do a lot of new and exciting things. We've had a few years of fantastic work done by Brad, coming in with the acquisition of Linden and making the company and the product better in a lot of different ways. We're much more efficient in how we're doing things. We have improved things like our ability to support people, lots and lots of different things about the company. And most importantly, we're very successful as a business. Again, meaning that we've got extra money to hire new people. We've got the ability to pursue new projects. And combined with the fact that technology is changing in such interesting ways right now, I was really excited when Brad and I started talking about the opportunity to bring me back full-time. For those who may know me from some of my other work, we have had a lab here in San Francisco for the last couple of years. And that lab has spawned a few companies out of it. The lab's actually gone on as kind of a sub-project here in the building, at least, where Second Life is headquartered. And so some of the ideas we have around new work in AI is work that's already gone on, some of it here in our lab over the last couple of years. I'll touch on some of that later in answers to some of the questions. But I am delighted to be back. I really appreciate, I got a lot of warm messages so far, as you could imagine. I really appreciate them. Thank you to everybody who sent me welcome back messages on different channels. I really appreciate it. And I think, as Brett mentioned with this series, but more broadly, I hope this is the beginning of a deeper conversation with everyone, including everyone here, but also everyone in Second Life. I want to really learn from everyone, before we make big decisions about what we're doing. You may have seen me trying out different social media and other channels, things like Reddit, Discord. I got a Prim Feed account, and others. If there's a channel that you think I should be in, please let me know. You can also always send me comments at lindenlab.com. Philip at lindenlab.com is a way to reach me via email, and then I will be in and out of these other channels and trying to learn more from you in them, and also just figure out better ways to interact with everyone, to kind of self-govern Second Life, and kind of look at where latest technology has left us, being able to do that better. I also created a new group that I'd love to have everybody join if you want to follow along in these experiments in deeper communication. The group is called Friends of Philip, and you should be able to join it right now, so it'd be fun if you do so, and tell other people about it. So Friends of Philip is a group. I partially got some inspiration from the great work that Firestorm's been doing with support using a large in-world group. So hats off to Firestorm in that regard, and I thought that maybe I could try creating a large group and doing some communication in that context, and more broadly, as I say, just finding out how to talk to everybody. So with that, let me answer a few of the questions that were sent beforehand, and then we'll take some more from everybody here. And I'm not going to name the people who, but if you're here and you've submitted that question, thank you very much, and feel free to add to that as we get into the second part of the conversation. The first question, and I tried to pick out the questions, there were about 100 submitted that I thought kind of hit some of the big topics that matter right now. So the first question is, Second Life has been stagnant in terms of technology for a while, and PBR and GLTF is a big step forward, and that's good and exciting. However, there's a fraction of the community that doesn't realize that PCs need to be upgraded more often than once every decade. Are there any plans to remind the less tech-savvy part of Second Life that this is the case? MMOs like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy raise their system requirements every few years as they keep releasing expansions. Second Life should do the same if we want to match graphical fidelity of competing platforms. So, people in Second Life so far, many people have stayed more than 10 years here. And I want to thank all of them and the many people here that I'm sure are among that group. We have people in Second Life who depend on it in the way that, you know, most people might depend on something like their basic internet service or their cell phone. So I think we have to be more careful than, for example, an MMOG developer might be. The typical time that people stay in games is much, much shorter than Second Life. The life cycle of the typical game is nothing like the 20 years that many people have nearly been here in Second Life, or I think actually some people like myself literally. So kicking out a big portion of your population when a new generation of PCs comes out seems both ethically fraught and just a much higher impact for us than for a more typical game. So for everything we've been doing, we're trying to take that into consideration. And for example, in these last few releases in particular, where we've been trying to recover from the problems that we introduced earlier this year in the release of the various viewers around some new capabilities that culminated with Firestorm's June 20th release that caused us a bunch of trouble, caused everyone a bunch of trouble that we're working on fixing right now. And in those last few releases, we've been doing everything we can actually to fix settings and find workarounds on older machines. So I think that while we certainly need to continue increasing the graphic fidelity of Second Life, we have to recognize who is here, who's using it, who we're of service to, and make sure that we don't cut off big swaths of the population as we accidentally did a few months ago, and are very sorry for it. Next question. Second Life has an aging population. What are the plans to attract new residents to expand and liven up our communities? Platforms like VR Chat are quite a lot more technically advanced than Second Life, which might be one of the attractive points to younger generations. Puppetry, GLTF, Lua do seem like great tools to modernize Second Life. Is there anything else on the roadmap? So let me just say that I wonder who agrees with me here. The most mind-blowing thing about VR Chat is simply being able to see yourself embodied and moving as your avatar, to look in the mirror, as many people do in VR Chat, at yourself, wearing your avatar, right? I know this is an experience that'll bring people to tears. I've seen it. The challenge that we have in creating that future for ourselves is that VR headsets are growing way too slowly. It's something that affected Second Life and affects us here now. I'd love to be able to find a way to use Second Life in VR, but I don't think we have anywhere near the resources to write a VR viewer from scratch. So while we're thinking about what we do with VR in the more distant future, we are not working on it right now. Next question. Dear Philip Rosedale, welcome to the new position at Linden Lab. We all wish you good luck and are looking forward to seeing Second Life evolve and improve. My question is about the implementation of AI in Second Life. The new Welcome Hub Social Plaza has a bot named Janet the Welcome Greeter, but she didn't answer questions very well, if at all. Would a ChatGPT version of her not be easy to train based on existing FAQ, help pages, and be able to help answering questions about Second Life for both newcomers and more experienced users? How do you see implementation of AI in Second Life in general? Thank you. So AI in general, let's talk about it. You have noticed us doing a number of what I would call alpha tests with bots, as the one discussed there, with greeters, with trying to figure out ways to get dressed. And in fact, one of our companies here in the office, Current, has worked on some really interesting back-end deployments of technology that you may not have seen yet, like trying to do a better job triaging the reports that we get on Canny. That's an example of a pretty successful, I think, use of AI that can really materially help us. But the applications of AI in Second Life, we have to be very careful and thoughtful about. Despite how many exciting things are going on in the broader kind of AI world. So as you see us doing these tests with bots of different kinds, understand that we're playing with things, but not saying that this is the right direction yet. I don't think we know what the right direction is for AI in virtual worlds. And in particular, when we use AI as actual characters in the world, as what we might call NPCs or bots or companions or any other words like that you may hear us using, we're doing these experiments with a couple of big rules in mind. One of the most important ones I want to reiterate here, and that I've said in other contexts outside of the Second Life work, is that AI has got to be used, as Second Life has been, as a way of bringing us closer together rather than a way of providing substitutes for each other. So, for example, an AI that helps you find new friends in Second Life might be a great thing, but an AI that provides a replacement for a relationship with someone else seems almost certainly not the thing we want to be doing. So I think our focus needs to continue to be indefinitely on doing what we've already done a pretty good job at, and a much better job than traditional social media, which is bringing people together, as we all know and have experienced. Next question. Given the massive success of platforms like Roblox, what are some of the ways Linden Lab is working to grow the user base amongst these types of users, and particularly younger people? So in general, we don't have and we don't want kids using Second Life. Let me just say that. We do allow 16-year-olds and up to use Second Life, but with restricted maturity settings on 16 to 18. And generally speaking, and to our knowledge, it seems like there are very few kids on the grid, and we like it that way. We're worried about risks of harm there on multiple levels. Financial exploitation, for example, of kids. Adults just not wanting kids there, and adults potentially being of harm to kids. So there's a lot of reasons why we have to be very, very careful in that regard. And it's why, as yet, we have not made attempts to make Second Life more appealing to younger people. We're very interested in your perspectives on that on an ongoing, and I'm sure that they're going to change as time goes by, but that's where we are right now. We're keeping it an experience for grown-ups. Next question. Welcome back. We missed you. Thank you. In terms of moving forward with AI and other shiny new things, what are your thoughts on the upgrade of the engine? We have been running the same engine for most of Second Life's life with PBR here, and now you want to bring AI and such. Are we not on borrowed time with the current engine? Well, a couple of thoughts about that. First of all, Second Life has a very complex user experience. Indeed, people actually need to help each other use Second Life, and so they need to be using a common and very complex UI to do that. And of course, the best and the most common UI for Second Life is Firestorm, actually. And thank you, Firestorm, for being that home for people as a user experience. But we have to plan for that reason, because of the complexity of that user experience. I think we have to plan on providing that user experience for a long time, if not indefinitely, and probably on the same engine. So I think we cannot, as easily as other systems, just change the engine underneath a set of UI complexity that is so remarkable, to say the least. I know you all know what I mean there. But at the same time, while planning to sustain this UX, I assume most folks here are using Firestorm, we are also evaluating whether we can or should build an entirely new viewer, the same way we did with mobile, that can make Second Life more accessible to people who either don't have the required PC or can't figure out the current UI. Next question. Many people are now increasingly coming to the fight against their virtual addiction to Second Life. They increasingly begin to realize that they're losing touch with the first reality and spend too much time in Second Life. How severe can the consequences be in this regard in the future? Now, that's a great question, right? Because we can clearly see that whether we're talking about social media or apps or games, there's tremendous danger of addiction. But most of the time when we talk about addiction in software, we're talking about these exploitive exploitative dopamine loops that basically keep you drawn into a mechanism, into a game mechanism or into a behavioral mechanism. That's pretty different, though, than Second Life. In Second Life, I think the most addictive component is that you have friends there. I bet everybody here would agree with that. I know that I do. And as we all know from being in Second Life, those friendships are as real and meaningful as real life ones. Friends in Second Life are not like having followers on Twitter. They're quite close, as we all know, and in many ways can be better than having friends in the real world. So we have to consider that in many cases we're providing a genuine reduction in loneliness and access to friends. And that's, in my opinion at least, a very, very good thing for us to be doing in the world, to be doing right now, to be doing online in a way that almost nothing out there online has created, like we have. So I think we have to be careful, but I do agree that we have to be very careful not to cause harm along a lot of lines, and that is a good example of one of the places we have to be thoughtful. Next question. How do you solve, quote, the boob problem, end quote? You can't look at one page of the marketplace or visit in-world shops without seeing thumbnails of women in a state of undress. It makes attracting new users and new partnerships problematic. It's not about being a prude. It's about going to the office and not seeing pinups in every other cubicle. I think that's a great, maybe it's a little bit funny, but it's an important and meaningful question. The one that really breaks my heart is when we teleport and we show up naked for a few seconds. It just seems like a ridiculously unexclusive thing for us to be doing. How many people find it fundamentally unacceptable to show up naked after teleporting somewhere? I say this because this was my fault in the beginning. It was something that I just kind of thought was funny when we were getting started. And frankly, looking back on that, I can't believe I did that. I should have been immediately like, that's a P1 bug. Nobody can show up naked, and then have their clothes show up a few seconds later. So I think we have to take concerns like this very seriously, that in addition to teleporting and becoming naked, it's too easy for pretty much anyone to encounter content quickly in Second Life that might offend them. And fixing that, I agree, would make us more widely accessible. So we need to be thinking about how to do it and doing it. You shouldn't be exposed to content that deeply upsets you almost immediately on entering Second Life. And you should be able to come into Second Life from a wide variety of use cases and desired journeys and cultural backgrounds and everything. So we really need to think about that. So I just wanted to restate it. But we have to reduce what people easily run into while balancing letting people do what they want in the privacy of their own homes, etc., as we all know. So the balance of striking the balance here is difficult, but I also think it's doable. And so I think you'll see us move forward in that regard over time. And I hope that in these discussions we have and figure out the ways to have better discussions with people about this, we get a lot of good feedback. Next question. As a creator, is there anything we creators could do to assist you guys with your goals or visions for Second Life? So there's a lot, and I think we need to do a better job, again, in beginning conversations like these and getting your feedback on things. More broadly, though, I would simply ask that we all help onboard people. Many of us are already doing that. Do you realize that if amongst the really devoted users of Second Life, we all brought a new user in and helped them get started in Second Life once every 6 months, that Second Life would be growing again? It's kind of a crazy observation. So I think that we need to design, you need to help us, and we need to design the right systems to best enable everyone to do that. Second Life, at least at this moment, requires help to use, as we all know. Probably the most help with dressing your avatar, right? But it requires one-on-one help, and everybody that joins Second Life and makes it knows that there's somebody that they really respect for having helped them get started, other than just a good piece of software. So help us think through that, help us onboard more people, help us bring more people in, because ultimately for content creators, right, the only positive sum game is increasing the size of the size of the overall economy. We don't want to do a negative sum or a zero sum game where we're just shifting around, revenues between people. We want to create a positive sum game, and that means bringing more people in. And I deeply believe and I'll read a lovely piece on this later, but I deeply believe that we have got more people that would like to use Second Life right now in its current form, with the current community we have, with the people that are deeply devoted to being here. There are more of those people worldwide than we have actively using Second Life. It's not, you know, 500,000 people or so that are the sort of people who would love to be in Second Life. There's no way that's the only, you know, number of those people worldwide. Next question. Are there any plans to update Second Life's scripting language from LSL to modern languages like C# or Python, similar to what Sansar has done? Well, yes. Just use this opportunity to repeat that we're working on Lua / Luau, which is also used by Roblox, as a potential replacement or a potential initial addition to the scripting engine capabilities, so that content creation becomes more easy in that new language. So we'll see how that comes. That one is not ready yet, but it is work that's underway. Next question. Why doesn't Linden Lab allow payments by Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in Second Life? This would attract more investors. I think what this question means is, yeah, if you're purchasing Linden dollars or buying land, for example, why can't you do that with crypto? I do think it's a good point that as payment systems have matured, and not just crypto, but, you know, any number of new systems, you know, things like Zelle or whatever, there's a million different innovative new ways to take payments for things. And I think that we should grow by actively expanding all the ways in which people can pay us. Obviously, with Second Life, there are all the legal and regulatory complexities of doing that, because we are, you know, allowing you to purchase Linden dollars in some cases with those forms of currency. But yes, we should be expanding paying for things with as many currencies as possible. And we do agree that crypto would be a good goal there. Although, as I think I've seen some people say, there are many negative things about crypto that I myself have written about lots and lots. If you care to read my stuff, you can find my Substack and Medium and things like that. You know, I think there are real dangers to, you know, going all in on cryptocurrency, but simply accepting cryptocurrencies as a means of payment makes a ton of sense. Next question, why not use a communications budget with major YouTube influencers or others to promote Second Life, which is slowly fading away each day? Well, you're right, we need to get Second Life growing. It has gotten a tiny bit smaller in terms of metrics like concurrency over time, and we need to turn that around. As I said, again, if each of us were able to bring one person in every 6 months, we'd actually reverse that trend. So it shows how gentle the decline is and how quickly we could do that. And we are going to start marketing for growth again, and soon. So that's exciting. The company is, you know, very well equipped to begin marketing again. We think there's lots of ways we can do that. But marketing for directly into channels like, say, YouTube, just broadly, where there's a ton of there's just a really kind of random set of people listening to the messaging, isn't effective with Second Life, because 95% or so of randomly chosen people still don't want to use virtual worlds like this. They don't, that is to say, they don't want to become avatars and go into a virtual world. As I've talked about before, and I'm wrapping together 2 question responses here, one of the reasons for that is simply that without facial expressions and body language, when you walk up to another avatar, there's still a kind of unusual experience to Second Life. I was thinking about it and thinking that I would describe it like, it's like going to a bar or a restaurant where there's all kinds of strangers you didn't know, and doing the whole experience completely in the dark, you know, shutting the lights off in the bar, if you will, and then talking to everybody with your voice, but not your body language. And as you can imagine, especially with new people, that's a pretty difficult that's a pretty uncomfortable thing for most people. And so for that reason, we can't yet, until we get that kind of nonverbal communication working better, I think, we can't just offer Second Life to everybody. That's what I thought in 2006, you know, when I was the enthusiastic and excited and quite a bit younger founder of this company. We wanted to make it work for everybody, and I think the reason it doesn't yet work for everybody is largely because of that sense of that lack of nonverbal communication. So we can't yet just, you know, hand out flyers for Second Life on the street corner in New York. But we can do lots of marketing, and we're going to think about how to do it. And if you have specific marketing ideas to more narrowly target the people who today would want to be using Second Life, please email them to me, send them to me. We are going to start marketing again, and it should be fun. Next one. We saw the post about suspension of Skrill as a credit service. Many of us have Skrill as the only option to process credit, so will there be any new alternative? We're hands-on on this problem. We're well aware of it, and we're not going to shut that service down until we've identified other options for you. So thanks for bringing that one up. We need to make sure there's adequate cash out options for everybody, and we won't shut Skrill down until we've identified and described what other options are. Next question, what's the future for the mainland? Will you finish off the 2 incomplete continents? I wanted to take that question just to say how much I love the mainland and how much in general I think there's a magic property of Second Life, which is that people are able to work together. I don't just see this in the mainland, by the way. I see it in many of the islands now, which are very large groups of islands in which there are wonderful communities that are together on those islands. So being able to build together with a community of other people where you work out, what your collective lives are together, I think is one of the really magical things about Second Life that no one else has captured yet. We're not, it hasn't happened. There's just not yet, other than Second Life, demonstrations of that kind of deep collective behavior in virtual worlds. And so I really have a big belief in this. And that also is one of these, obviously, do we prioritize things like region crossing and different forms of community governance, right? I think we should. I know region crossing is a specific hotspot that people have mentioned in many of our recent surveys. Yes, we've got to keep making that better. That was always the idea. I see people mentioning houseboats and sailing and boats. Absolutely, we got to make that work. And again, I think with respect to some of that governance and community building stuff, please join my new group, Friends of Philip, and we'll talk together about that in more detail there. How long before the mobile app becomes the only app? That was the question. I think never. Many people here are going to want to use Second Life on desktop forever, and that seems great. Indeed, I think the most deep and immersive uses of Second Life probably can't be translated completely to the mobile device. But at some point, our hope is that a new person could access Second Life entirely from mobile, but we don't think we're there yet. So right now, what we're trying to do with the mobile version is get to something where it's at least a little helpful to everyone to use the mobile version. And maybe a fun way to get started even, but that's kind of the order we're doing it. A little bit of utility for everybody first, then maybe a way for newer people to get started or do part of the experience, but then ultimately have desktop always available. As someone just said, tiny screens don't work. Yeah, the way I say it is, it's like the Black Mirror, right? Like having Second Life as an experience on the Black Mirror, that's very hard. So we need to take that. That said, I think that by doing a good job getting a mobile app that is out there in concert with desktop will allow us to grow. So this next one is moving, and I'll try to read it without having it make me cry because I thought it was so wonderful, and I think it speaks to a lot. So let me just read it. I started in Second Life in 2009 because a friend I knew in an online writers group had suffered a serious injury that put him in a coma, and when he woke up, he was confined to a wheelchair. He went from being an active, athletic person in real life to feeling like he was forced to watch the world go by through a window, wrestling with real depression. Another friend in the same group had been part of Second Life for several years already and suggested he come into SL as he might find meaningful things to do there. They asked me to join because I have a gift for understanding technology and being able to explain how things work to people who are less tech savvy. I threw myself into learning everything I could about how Second Life worked so I could be up to speed and answer his questions as he went along. He dove into several communities, one after another. I went along with him, learning as fast as I could. One of the things that started to become apparent to me is that many of the most dedicated and brilliant creators in Second Life were seniors or disabled in real life. Around 2012, one of the CEOs, I think this means after me, commissioned a study to find out more about the people who joined Second Life. I don't know where that study is now, but what I remembered was that the study revealed something like 19 out of 20 people who joined Second Life left within a year. We touched on this earlier, by the way. The Linden Lab leadership wanted to figure out how to make more people stay. The question I thought was being overlooked was, quote, who's the person who stays? In that 20, end quote. I love that. My own answer that I found out was that people who stayed were highly motivated to figure it out. Second Life at that time was not necessarily plug and play user friendly, but these people threw themselves into the world with tenacity. When I learned about who these people were in real life, they were again elderly, autistic, or physically handicapped in real life. In the real world, these people were put on the shelf, treated as if their lives were waning. In Second Life, they came back to themselves, much like music revives the catatonic mind. All this is to say, I think a big mistake the lab has made over the years is to treat Second Life as if it were a game and cater as a diversion for the young, when it really, really, really has a meaningful place for people who the real world tends to put on the shelf. This is too long. I've been carrying this for many years, but I really hope, and I may not be the person to implement it, but I hope someone does. Thank you. I'm glad you're back. More than anything to that, I just say, yes, truth. It feels like we need to understand better and better and better who the people here are and who we're serving, and make changes to Second Life, for example, to its accessibility, which I think is a huge opportunity for us. You know, we should make Second Life accessible to all of those people who are using it. You know, for example, I think that means things like captions and translation and sound and text changes, so that people that are, for example, hearing impaired or visually impaired can use it, you know, transparently, basically. So I just wanted to read that one because I thought it really captured what I was trying to say earlier, which is Second Life's not for everybody, but it's amazing. And we just need to be thoughtful about that as we begin our marketing and understand what we're doing. Let's see. Another one, a last one here, and then we'll take some from everyone else. The question is, I hope Second Life can give the opportunity for banned accounts to be revived and given life again. The user was previously wronged of wrongdoing despite proving otherwise, but was consequently banned. Is there a chance that these banned accounts can be given reconsideration? My answer to that is simply to reflect on together how amazing Second Life is. You know, banning from an online community is a kind of last resort, and you know, obviously should only happen under the most desperate conditions, where there's just no way to have you know, someone participating in the community anymore. And again, I think over the years we've done a pretty good job of handling that process as best we can. But the very fact that it comes up over and over again, in one sense, reiterates the importance of virtual worlds, and again, why we're doing this in that text I just read. And I think in that spirit, we can certainly continue to recognize our the importance of Second Life to individuals, the seriousness of banning, and whether there are processes, you know, judicial processes, if you will, that can make that work better, or you know, provide alternatives in some cases to banning. So I just wanted to kind of state that question, not because I have a quick answer. I don't, and I think we're largely doing the best that we can right now. But to say that Second Life is a precious thing, and we've got to focus on those people who hold it as precious and live here, and continue to design it to support their needs, even the needs of governance where appropriate. You know, when someone has to leave Second Life, they should have to leave in broad agreement, you know, with the community that they had to leave. So I think we can continue to do things to do better in that regard. But I do see many notes like that, and so I just wanted to read that one. So thanks. That wasn't all the questions, and let's shift now maybe to some conversation. Again, I hope that, again, I'm back. I hope that this can be the beginning of a variety of conversations in different formats. You know, this is one with a large number of people, so it's largely, I guess you call it didactic. You know, I'm standing up here just talking at everybody, and we need to do other engagements with the community that have different experimental characters to them, and I intend to do that. And for those who know me, you probably know that I have a lot of fun experimenting with different processes for communication. So, Brett, why don't I turn it back to you and maybe ask you to lead us in some interaction here.
Great. Thank you, Philip. So what I'm going to start with, I've been monitoring the text chat, and I will repeat the question. And if that person here wants to elaborate on voice, they're welcome to do so, or text, but I'll go ahead and start. And again, hopefully I'll get as many of these as we can. One resident asks, Philip has land in Waterhead. Will you take it back and fix it? And the old Linden Lab headquarters.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a good one. You got a good surprise for me there, Brett. I don't know. I will take this as an incentive to go and explore my land in Waterhead, but obviously that's one of the old servers. I guess I would take this time to say I often hang out in Ahern, where I believe that's where the little man statue in the ivory tower of primitives, and many of whenever I go there, I run into some of the oldest residents of Second Life, and so it's always a pleasure to do that. But yes, I will. I'll take that as a good question to figure out what to do if we should be bringing land back, as you say. And I love the mainland, like I said before.
Okay, we've got another question, actually similar to that, I guess. How important is digital history, like the area around the old Linden Lab headquarters? Again, I think this is the same person, Philip, part two. Shall it be left broken, or is it a good idea to restore old region and builds? Clearly some interest in the digital origins and history of Second Life.
Yeah, well, when we started, of course, for those who remember, especially back in like 2006, like we literally had an amount of data on the main grid that was kind of inconceivable. I mean, we at that time were one of the largest, exchanges of data traveling across the internet, and also just storage devices to store everything, which I'm saying because one of the problems of what you'd ideally like would be like the Wayback Machine for Second Life, right? Where you could just go to any region, stand there, and then like turn back the clock or make a local copy of it or something to play in that represents it from a different point in time. But the one problem there, and I guess I can say this as our CTO more effectively than I suppose you could have said it as our founder, there's some considerable expense in maintaining a complete time history of the world. But I agree with the questioner. I think that it'd be nice if we could come up with better collective mechanisms for celebrating, say, old builds. I think that gets to governance, by the way. I've been thinking a lot about that, and for those who know my work with FairShare, which is a exploratory digital currency that involves a lot of community building and community structure, I think there might be ways for us to do a better job of voting on or otherwise using our community to actively decide like what things should be preserved. Because I know that if I asked, everybody here what they thought was the most important, build in the world to be, say, preserved, if the folks who build it weren't able to pay for it anymore, I just think we'd have such a wide variety of answers that, even if we had a gathering like this to say, what stuff should we lock in place or bring back or whatever, I think it would probably be very fractious, at present. We just have a lot of us shouting at each other about, how to do that in a limited way. I'm just going to respond to one question. When you bring the birds and the Ators back, I just love that. I wrote the original Birds and Ators. For those who have seen the Linden Lab, the Welcome to Linden Lab video from James Linden of, I think, about 2005. There was an ecosystem in Second Life at the very beginning that was really related to what my personal interest in virtual worlds was, which was kind of simulation, cellular automata, artificial life. I guess I wanted to repeat that one because I think it's important to recognize that, what I think is cool about Second Life isn't what we should build next. We should build what we all think is cool. And so, if we find out that through innovations like Lua, for example, we can do a better job of simulating artificial life or improving different aspects of Second Life, I think we should do it if it makes sense to everybody. But I personally, I must say, am a huge artificial life fan. And I also think, by the way, that AI is going to get really unusual when you have actual living things moving around in an environment. One of the projects here at our lab that I have helped on is a project, or actually a couple of different projects that are very expansive projects related to different kinds of AI systems with the goal of creating conscious living things rather than text prediction machines, which is what, as many of you probably know, we kind of have today with LLMs. So, next question, Brett.
Okay, there was just a follow-up question. I think you really answered it already about Skrill. Maybe just elaborate about Skrill and the replacement. Just clarify that, perhaps.
Just we recognize, because we've gotten a lot of good feedback, that Skrill is the only cash out mechanism for a number of people, and so we are going to look very hard at all those accounts and try to establish whether there are alternative cash out mechanisms wherever possible before we do anything with Skrill. So yeah, thanks for the concerns on there, and we will try to provide an alternative to everybody that's using it.
The next question is an interesting one. Can we get Second Life unbanned from Twitch?
So unbanning from Twitch, right? We've explored that a number of times in the past. As folks know, Twitch has a pretty high sensitivity around adult-themed content, and that, I think, has been what has driven the inability of people to broadcast on Twitch. And I do think we should continue to make the argument, and will, with Twitch, that we should be allowed on there, and potentially even, as we touched on earlier, maybe just to make changes to the accessibility of, say, much more adult-themed content in a way that maybe, works for lots of people here and also works for Twitch. We sort of touched on that earlier, and so I think we might be able to kind of do that work together. But yeah, I think that it would be great, I know, to be able to broadcast onto Twitch. The other marketing concern I have, as I touched on earlier, and we'll just keep reiterating, is I don't think that Second Life's necessarily for everybody, so we have to be thoughtful about that. And in some cases, also touching on what I said earlier, we don't want to do something that would just bring in teenagers as well. So we have to be careful there too. Although I must say, off the top of my head, I don't have an instant reckoning on, to what extent, to what the ages are of people that are using Twitch. Go ahead.
I have a question about your thoughts about educators in Second Life and maybe the future of Second Life supporting educators.
Well, I continue to believe that it's funny. When we ran into trouble with VR adoption at High Fidelity, as many folks here probably know, we did or were following along. When I sat down and I thought about, well, if you really did need to make VR work for some application for which it really can be used broadly, not just things like industrial training, right, where there is some success with VR headsets, I always go back to education as the sensible way that virtual worlds and VR devices can have a positive impact on everyone worldwide. If you could be educated in a virtual world capably, it potentially reduces the costs and greatly expands the accessibility of good education to all. So let me just say that I really believe in education and always have as a use case. I think that we have to be thoughtful about things like VR devices and communication modality and nonverbal communication and things like that in doing that. I also know, and I see some folks mentioning it here, thank you, Zinnia, Second Life's transformational for my college students. I'm glad that it is. There are certainly specific educational areas in which Second Life is and always has been very effective. So I hope we can, for example, by making changes where you're less likely as a teacher, say, to run into content that upsets you, we should be able to continue making it more accessible to more people. And just generally that theme of accessibility. I think that Second Life, through performance improvements, through specific feature changes, can be made more accessible to the people who are presently using it. So I hope we can do that. Next one, Brett. Cody. It's wonderful to hear your voice, Cody. I'm sorry that I can't understand it a little better. If you could type in the chat too, that'd be awesome. But it's so great to see you there. Thank you, Cody.
Cody, we're gonna if we can get your question, we'll.
Nice to see you.
Great. Okay, so we have another question, and Cody, we will get yours as well. Rest assured. There's a question about puppetry, which at one point was in development. I'm not myself clear on its status. I think they're asking, one, to put it on your radar and perhaps have us take a look at it again.
Yeah, so certainly I did follow the puppetry project, and in fact had made some contributions to it because, as we touched on earlier, I'm very strongly of the opinion that increases in communication bandwidth between people is just generally important in Second Life. In fact, let me say, I think that we've biased ourselves perhaps a bit more toward content creation options and not enough toward communication improvements. I think one thing I could imagine being an improvement is if we shift resources around so that we're more steadily making advances across, for example, accessibility, communication, discovery, search, in concert with the advances that we're making to things like fundamental engine capability and creative creation tools. So I think we need to be doing all of that. Yeah, the expression social tooling that I just saw Coffee write is I think an apt description of this. I think it's a good way of doing that. Specifically with respect to puppeteering, yeah, moving the avatar's body more capably has got to be in some way, one way or another, on the roadmap. You know, right now we're still almost always just triggering and playing back animations, although I must say my avatar's wiggling around while I'm talking is a kind of an in-betweener example of something that moves a little bit more toward the puppeteering direction. But basically, I think we need to come up with ways to move avatars in a more sophisticated fashion. And of course, were we ever to do anything in VR, we would, of course, that would be a hard requirement because, as I said earlier, the appeal of VR is seeing yourself moving, you know, on screen for the first time in your own avatar's body. So puppeteering is a big piece of that. That said, we're not working on it right now. And I think it's one of those things where if you underinvest in it, if you only have like one person work on it on the weekends, you're just not going to get to anything that's useful to everybody here. And I think that's been one of the challenges with puppeteering for those folks here that work on things like inverse kinematics and you know, blending and, you know, all the crazy things that go along with animations and joint movements. It's a tough space. So I think, yes, we need to figure out how to do things like puppetry better, but we need to figure out how to redeploy our resources in a way that allows us to do it well. And I think that applies more generally to a lot of things here. There's so many things in Second Life that are fantastic and kind of 80% built, and I'd like to get them to 100%. One of the ways that I'm different now coming back in terms of how I'm working with the team and what my strategic approach is, along with reflecting on who we're really serving and not trying to serve people that we're not, you know, helping, is to be much more hardcore, a little more Steve Jobs, if you will, about not letting us put something out until it's ready, you know, until we've talked to people about it, until it works really well. You know, there's just so many cases where we've done amazing work, you know, like PBR materials even, where we've done amazing work, but we you know, test it, deploy it, staff it in a way that's insufficient for what we're trying to achieve. And so, you know, I'm sorry that we've done that. And one of my intentions is to provide assistance at the top with just being more hardcore about, you know, fixing the broken windows and really completing things before we launch them. Brett?
Okay. We have another question. This is going way back. So somebody is asking if you remember the Second Life community conventions, the physical events that were held, sort of fandom and meetups and so forth. It's been, I think, over a decade or so since the last one. Just actually, I think they just want to get it on your radar saying, hey, we'd love to bring it back.
I'd love to know how many people are interested in doing that again. Maybe in the course of figuring out how in this group, Friends of Philip, again, please join. Let's see how many people let's see how large a group I can make. Maybe in that group, we could have a little deeper conversation about what a convention, what sort of convention or gathering everybody would like. So I'll take it under work, or Brett and I will, to take a look at that idea and think about it again.
a mobile question for you, although I don't know if we can say publicly. I guess let's see what you say to this, but they're asking, when will you open the mobile beta to non-premium or non-paid members?
Very soon. I think within the next, let's say within the next month, hopefully closer than that if we can. So yeah, we believe we think it's time now to get it out to everybody so that we can all try using it, as I said earlier, at least a little. I don't want you to switch your Second Life use entirely over to mobile. Please don't do that. I don't think we're ready for that yet. But I think that we have something where you could do things like visit a place you've never seen before, or exchange messages with people in a way that works pretty well. So we'll hopefully get that out pretty soon. Thank you.
We have a comment and a question. Somebody says, when I speak with real life friends and family about working in Second Life, there is always a shade of bad reputation for our metaverse. And I'm sad about that because it causes that people don't understand, the potential for what we have here. That Second Life allows your creativity to fly, and you can be and do anything and everything. And this is special. So then the question here is there a plan perhaps to clean the name of this amazing platform that allows others to come here and enjoy it?
I think that's a great question. I don't know if the person is here and could turn on their audio. I'm not quite sure what you mean by clean the name or change the name. I think one thing is, yes, we could change it back to Linden World. I think that one of the tricks, let me just riff a little bit. If the person's here and wants to add something to that, Brett, that'd be great. But I can riff on that a little bit and just say that Second Life is so critically dependent on what I sort of call the double exponential of friends and content. That as we get together with new friends here, we're inspired to build more content, which then brings us more new friends. And so there's this incredible double exponential. Obviously, we all really saw it in 2006 when we just grew like an absolute rocket. By the way, in terms of just being, proud of things, if you look up Google Trends, that old trend service, and you look up Second Life in there, just witness and despair, ye competitors to us. The vast success of Second Life as measured by the use of it as a term back in 2006 or so, it was quite something. But I think that I think that a lot of the appeal of Second Life depends on the fact that there are other people there and the fact that we're all kind of together in one place. And so like simple things like, rename it or, start over again with an empty grid or whatever. It's just not clear that the magic of Second Life is in its community and in the people that are already here, being able to bring more people in. But yeah, I think these are all good things to think about as we try to better figure out who's here and how can we serve them better. I see a lot of chat there, but I'll stop there.
Okay, the next question, I'm going to kind of paraphrase from it, but they reference, I think they may have seen you in the media somewhere in your journey when you were outside of Second Life after founding it and leaving it, that you may have made some reflective comments about it, pro and con, maybe as you were sort of reflecting and processing, what Second Life meant to you as a founder. So I think the question, really the heart of it is, how are you feeling about Second Life as you come back in? And will you really be immersed to understand the communities and what they do and what's important to them and what needs to be added and changed to make the Second Life world even better?
Well, one thing, to just restate the obvious, for those who know me or remember me back when I was CEO in those first 10 years, I'm working at that level now again. So I am working on Second Life all the time. Again, if you see me in different forums, chat with me there too, or tell me where you want me to go that I haven't been, and I'll go if I can. So I'm really, really deeply involved in this. As I said at the beginning, part of that is figuring out how better to communicate with everyone and understand what we really need to do. As the CEO, I'm focusing on how and why and which technology changes we should make, and I'm also focused on more broadly strategy and product as I work with the executives here. I think that I actually let me go back, and because it's kind of related. The person who Eve, I think, who actually made that last question, added something and said that,
Yes.
yeah, it was. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Shoot. Please go ahead.
No, I meant like first I am very sorry for my English. I'm Italian, so I'm very bad.
You
But
sound great.
thank you. But like many people, when I say I work in Second Life, say like, oh, it's still alive that, but that
Right.
was only for sex stuff or other things. So you know what I mean. So I
Yes.
would like to see a new way of marketing and to show people what we do here, because it's amazing. Like it's the best metaverse in the world. So I am
Thank
very
you.
sad for 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 this, because people don't know how amazing the avatars, the scenes are here. So
Thank you. Thank you. Those are so many good thoughts. Thank you. And your voice sounds wonderful. Your English is great. It does excite me because it makes me think about how one of the cool AI things we could do is translate for everybody that wants it, kind of let everybody speak in a native language if they care to. That's one of the features that you just made me think about there that I'm really excited about. Like, I'd like to have you teach me Italian by speaking to me in Italian, but I see your captions in English. Like, how cool would that be? That's a specific thing that I think would be really fun. But yeah, when people are like, is Second Life still around? Well, one thing about that is lately, people haven't been saying that as much. Like when I run into people, they're like, "Wow, Second Life, yeah, I've heard about that." So their attitude has shifted a little bit from like, "Isn't that place gone or something?" to like, "What's the deal with that place?" And I think that because it's been around for so long now, it's just kind of outlived it's outlived its critics in some ways, right? Like people are always like, "Well, didn't Second Life go away?" And it's like, no, actually, totally not. So I think there is a sea change happening. We are going to market more, as I said earlier. So let's do it. I mean, we're going to start growing again, and we need everybody's help. But of course, we'll fund that process and provide a bunch of energy for it. But we're going to need your help with that as well. But we are going to start growing again. I also think, as I said in some of the communications about this, we're at a very exciting moment in the world. I mean, the world is really exciting and really screwed up in a lot of big ways. There's tremendous uncertainty around whether we've broken ourselves with the internet, for example. Have we ended democracy with the internet? Good God. I mean, it seems like maybe. It seems maybe some of the ways we've used technology broadly have put the very basic democratic process of working together as human beings in question. And I find that terrifying as an entrepreneur who perhaps has had some role in it. Happily, I think that our role in technology and the demonstration, or specifically what we've done with Second Life, has shown that there is a positive way. There's a much more positive way to connect with people. Second Life is an online venue, as we all know, where depolarization happens, where people tend to become friends with people they might not have liked in the real world, for example. There's all these wonderful positive aspects of Second Life that we need to focus on more, right? We need to get that perception out in front of, it's a sex game or something like that. But I think that we really do have an opportunity at this moment in history to demonstrate mechanisms for getting along together in virtual worlds and to actually provide a better home for those who wish to use virtual worlds or need to in the coming years than anybody else that's out there. So I really am excited at this moment, and I think that virtual worlds are going to be respected maybe again in a way that is super helpful to some of the broader challenges we face as a human society. So thank you for that question. Brett, I know we're probably running out of time. I'm going to hang around for a bit if folks want to chat a little more, but I know we should call an end to the official gathering, and I want to say thank you, everyone, so much for having me. And it's so good to be back, and I'm having so much fun. And I hope that I see you in World or in one of these variety of channels that we can talk to each other on.
Thank you, Philip. And we are capturing the questions. And remember, we will likely have follow-up community roundtables very soon. So if we didn't get your question answered, hang around with Philip, and or we'll bring it up and come back for the next one. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. This is great.
Can I push in now?
Sure. Yeah, let's do some more audio.
Hi, Philip. Long time user. I just wanted
Yes.
to say about the advertising, and it really is a real, because it is a lot of negative that's always put out there instead of the positive too, such as Relay for Life and like that. But also, what I noticed a lot, especially with the implementation of the mobile app, is that the Lindens, no offense, tend to advertise to people that are already here. We're already here. We're already captive audience, but
Right.
everything's addressed to us instead of addressed to the world, and having the world go, well, that looks interesting, maybe I should join.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's, everything's internalized. Even posts on Flickr, posts on Twitter, things like that. It's always to us instead of to the world. And we're already here, and we already love you. So, you know, you already have our dollars and our support. The other thing, though, too, is when people do join, sorry, I'm going to take a minute. The username experience is horrible at the moment. There is no explanation whatsoever of what a username is. Please
Right.
go and check out the website, because you join, and I'm a mentor at the hub, so you have people coming in that either have down their personal name and then freak out, or they put down stuff that you can't address them as, and they freak out, or their names are just rubbish. And I understand that you can pay for a name now, but my partner actually says that you just monetized regret. So,
Oh no.
and it's harsh. It really is. That's really harsh, but that's the truth, because you've got these people that come in and don't realize how absolutely important you.
So let me just sum that one up for you, because that's great. So you're saying, because I think I can take that and run with it. You're saying that the way we're presenting the account name and display name and last name and stuff is just not explaining it to people, and then they're feeling like they need to get another account or change their name and pay for that or something like that. That is a specific one. Thank you. I can take that and run with it.
Yeah, the join thing just says username, password, security question. It doesn't say what's going to happen when you're in World.
Okay.
And as you know, with other games, a lot of the time the username is just the back end behind the scenes name. And when you get in World, you actually name yourself. But that's not how SL is. So they're not realizing.
Yeah.
And you
I
just
hope
don't,
some of the, there's also some Firestorm here, folks here, I'm sure, who are in control of the slight differences in the join process with respect to Firestorm. So yeah, I think we should think about that on both sides. And I think, having gone through the join process a couple of times myself in the past couple of weeks, I agree with you. I think I understand what you mean, because I had the same inkling myself when I used it.
Because we were all lucky. Right, we were all lucky. We got told there's a last name. So we got to choose a first name that would go with the last name. You know, we understood it was a name. So, I mean, I've seen some names that are. I mean, I've told Brett this before. I had somebody come in that's name was husband abuser. You know, because they've just put down something. You know, and that's just. They could go on to be incredible people in this community, but they're stuck with this name. And once they start spending the dollars, that's the problem. And so on their look or whatever like that, and so then that could be why the retention's not staying. Why they're not, because they don't know
Yep.
to just go out the door and create another account, or maybe
Yep.
get a support ticket and talk to somebody about it.
I think you got me. Don't sell past the close. I'm on it. I'll see what we can do about that. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
I agree. Who else wants to talk?
Hi, Philip. I just want to say a huge thank you for giving us Second Life. Big fan.
Oh, thank you very much. And hi, Cody. Yeah. Did you say you'd want to give me a hug? Oh, thank you, Cody. Well, it's good to be back. I appreciate you. Oh, I'm good. I'm great. It's been fun, although I'm tired. You know what? I'm not sleeping very well, but I think that's just the first few weeks. Well, it's just so much to read and listen to, and obviously some of it's a little stressful, but I'm really having fun being back, and I feel like it's my home. So thank you, Cody. It's good to hear from you. I'll come and visit. Send me your island in chat, Cody, and I'll remember to come by and say hi. I'll see you there. Yeah. I'll see you there. So, who else has got a voice comment?
Hello.
Hi.
Do you guys have any plans to set up more community gateways across SL? Do you all have any more plans of that?
Do you mean similar to the Linden Homes regions?
No, I mean with different Premier Wrestling and different community things like Premier Wrestling and places like that. Community gateways and stuff like that.
I think that we do. Oh, I see Patch actually saying we do.
We have applications coming frequently for them. In fact, we've got someone under review now. I don't remember which one it was, but you can apply to be one at any time.
Okay. I mean, is it going to be quickly or?
The review process itself takes. The review process itself takes several weeks. But,
for it.
Okay.
With the application, that's why she's asking.
Okay. All right. Between myself and Patch, yeah, I'll try to learn more about that as well. I haven't learned about that program of which you speak.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure. Sure. Go ahead.
So, hi, it's Ingrid Ingersoll. Nice to have you back. It's very nice.
Hey, Ingrid. Nice to see you. My gosh, that's an old name from a long time ago.
It's an old name. So I still log in to decorate and landscape. That's primarily why I'm here, because if I was redecorating my condo every 2 seconds, I'd be broke. But I can do it in Second Life. So
Right.
I still have a place on the mainland, a plot that I've had for a long time, and I was wondering if there were any plans to sort of, I don't know, spruce up the mainland. There's a lot of I hate to say this, but there's a lot of old mole stuff that's been around for probably 15 years that isn't looking so good now. And then people for a while were kicking around the idea of mainland textures or new ones. I was just wondering if anything is being considered for the mainland, basically.
As I said earlier, I know there are some changes to the mainland related to the to improvements for everybody on materials and stuff. But as I said earlier, I really think the mainland is cool, and I think that while we've
I do too, by the way.
Yeah,
there's some stuff there that maybe should be edited at this point.
Send me your ideas on it. I mean, I think the general observation is, and I actually think the statistics support it, people use the mainland a lot. I mean, it's even though the mainland makes up a smaller fraction of the total landmass now, the actual user hours per region is, I think, similar on there. So I think that we may be undervaluing the connectedness of larger communities, basically. And then I'd like to figure out ways to do that better. You know, some of the experimental stuff that whether it's communities doing co-owned land, you know, or things like the racing sims or the sailing sims, right? That feels really amazing to me. Mm-hmm. And like maybe there's stuff we can do in the software to make it easier to do those kinds of things, you know. In short, I'd like to see larger and larger public and co-owned builds. And that kind of at a high level, that's what I feel like. And, you know, as I learn more about what's going on, we can work on it. Yeah.
It's a very visual place too, and we have new people come in and they see, you know, there's large areas that really just don't look great. So I feel like, I don't know, maybe from like a retention perspective, that might be worthwhile.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks, Ingrid. Nice to hear you.
Yeah, you too.
You're far enough away from me back there, I can't see you. Hi, who is that?
Hi, Philip. It's Buffy Beale.
Hi.
Ages and ages ago. Can I just
nice to see you.
Buffy.
Hi, everyone.
Hold on there. It sounds like Mal. Mal, you probably mute yourself.
No?
Oh, Lord, as usual. Sorry.
I'm here.
Yep. There you go. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say, can you please include the word nonprofits when you're talking about education? Because we have a huge presence here. Think Real for Life, Nonprofit Commons, I could go on. And it just seems we kind of get lumped in with education, and we're actually we're separate, but we're connected. So
I noticed the other day, yeah.
Okay, that's
thank you. Great. I noticed that, and it was funny, a warm note in that regard. I think I was looking at maybe like cash payouts or something, and I was noticing that the American Cancer Society is still doing the great work that they've been doing here for 20 years. My gosh, I don't know how much they've raised for cancer research, but it's certainly been a non-trivial amount. And yeah, the nonprofit commons, I'm remembering when I spoke before Congress next to Susan, I think, from...
Susan Tenby.
Yeah, Susan Tenby.
This is Rhiannon Chatnoir, by the way.
Oh, hi.
Nonprofit Commons, hello.
Oh, wow.
Good to have you back. Hey, old beats old beats in the room, yes.
Yeah.
We NPC has been still meeting every week since that time. I mean, of course, Susan founded it, but then the nonprofit that we created a nonprofit to pick up the Second Life Community Convention, Avacon. So we ran the last two, myself and others, and then we also used that nonprofit to we took over Nonprofit Commons and fiscally managed that too. So I mean, I think there are many of us in this room, obviously, that are would love to kind of help in regards to especially any of these community things. And I think getting out these more positive stories, in the day-to-day of the many of us who never left SL, right? Since 2005, January 2005, at least for myself. But yeah, yes. So we're happy you're back.
Gosh, that's great. I think one thing we're going to do is we're going to try to use this group, join my group. Geez, I should look at it, see how many people are in it. That could be kind of fun. But
very popular, Philip, very popular.
We're going to try to maybe use that group as like a flash mob tool or something to go on tours, or to go and hang out at different people's places. So look for that in the future. I'd like to, do a series of events where we just kind of, show up at different places and see somewhere new. As a means of, both talking to each other, but also just having fun and looking at places that we haven't seen before. On the subject of makeover, I heard somebody say that, and I saw the Jack go by on making. I mean, one, let me just recognize, the elephant in the room, which is it's very hard to get dressed in Second Life. I mean, God. I also think we've done ourselves some self-harm over the years by basically increasing the capability of things like the clothing system without ever decreasing its or making it easier to use, right? We've allowed it to get harder to use with more capabilities. So yes, that's good in that it allows people to look like it allows people to express themselves in the way that they want with their avatar, but it obviously has this big downside, which is it feels to me like we've kind of been gradually making Second Life harder and harder to use, which is just lame. and I think
it's like a laptop.
Yeah, exactly. And we got to re-examine some of this. As I touched on earlier, one of the questions is, do we do this by making optional or incremental changes to the user experience that you're seeing when you use Firestorm, which is obviously what almost everyone here is using, or do we do something where we start from scratch like we did with mobile and just build an entirely new experience where we don't add UI at all? There's just a design question of what the easier way is to go. But I think, as I said earlier, the pillars of design principle for us will be, we're going to keep the full capacity UI forever because we just have to. And, the best UI for that is Firestorm, by the numbers, very prominently. So we're going to keep that UI available to everybody that wants to have the 747. I was laughing with someone the other day and I was saying, this is like, hopefully I'll get a laugh out of everybody here. Coming back, looking at Second Life's interface, I was like, you know what this is like? This is like simultaneously using the most complex 3D editor you've ever used. Let's say it's Blender, right? Or pick your poison, right? Maya, whatever. You've got the most complicated 3D editor open, every window open on that 3D editor, right? And then at the same time, you have the UI from one of those Siege experiences in World of Warcraft, right? Where you're managing 100 people in real time and talking and giving instructions. Isn't Second Life in some ways kind of like both of those UIs overlapped at the same time? And I'm like,
this one was all web complexities.
We're like those English taxi drivers, right? To be a London taxi driver, you have to memorize a map so complicated and know it by heart that they do brain studies on the people who become London taxi drivers because their brains are probably different than other people's brains.
Yeah.
And I look at Second Life's UI and I'm like, oh my gosh, we've done great. Yeah, well, there's just been so many different little pieces of it that have been done well, but taken together, holy moly, I'm coming back and trying to use this thing, and I haven't been able to get my clothes on.
There's some good YouTube videos if you ever need to figure out the clothing system.
Let's go back to it. Let's go back to the makeover.
Can I offer something? I'm pretty basic here. I've been with you all since 2008. I've been in SL and not always online. Life, RL always takes over sometimes. But when you were talking about this, the first thing that came to my mind is the information that I've gotten from different groups, different seller groups, different creator groups. If you have a question, you go to a creator group that you're a member of, a group member, and you can ask questions. That is a resource.
Yes.
Unbelievable resource, and we should give them. We should
from
give
Maitreya bodies
right, exactly. And also, I'm a linguist in nature and in work, and I think language acquisition really should be strongly supported in SL internationally, and there's ways of doing that. I think to make it part of the process and getting into SL and feeling part of the community by supporting those different languages. So, sorry, just had to put that in there.
Thank you. I want to go back to the redesigning my avatar and use it both as a. So first of all, everybody wants to redo my avatar, so I guess maybe we should do that.
No, it's excellent.
Let me
look at classic brutal voting. So let me let you all quiet down. Let me say. Let me say that this actually is a little. I want to use this as a micro example of finding better governance for us, right? The answer is, does Philip need a new avatar? It would seem maybe. It would seem maybe. Let me say that I like the way I look. So sorry. I like the core conceptual framing of Philip Linden. Who I am. I've always enjoyed that. But I'd be very happy to have somebody do a makeover for me. I'd also be personally interested in because learn something about my avatar.
What's this?
Cody. Cody, hang on. The question that I would have for everybody is this, which is, how would we best decide who should give me a makeover? How would we do that? You know, and what body to use or whatever, or what system to use?
A contest.
Right?
I get to make over Philip Rosedale.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'd like to do is invite you to, first of all, talk about it in this group that I'm forming, and then second, let's use this as a study case. What's the best way to do that? You know?
And I think people have to.
Sorry, I was just going to say, why not actually get the body creators to create their Philip Linden look?
Oh,
their own custom
yeah.
faces and groups, and you go and vote on it, and you can see which body
That's
creator
true.
gets the best
Ooh,
vote.
that's an idea too.
That's not a bad idea.
That'd be amazing, yeah.
I think, though, I think what you have to understand in a good design briefing, right? There's a bit of your own branding, Philip, that is tied to the way that why this avatar is the way this is. So how does that translate forward into any other choice that may come down the path?
How are you going to be your authentic self?
Yeah.
Yes. And what people don't know is, like, I mean, at least some of us who were back in that original room, like the very first Second Life Community Convention was in New York City, and it was like in partnership with the State of Play conference that was happening at a New York high school. And Philip showed up, and although they sort of materials were given to him to exactly dress him up like this. So there are photos of Philip like this.
We made me.
Yes, codpiece and or shiny.
Yeah.
I have to suggest this though. You know how the royals always put portraits behind with their family and their babies and their grandbabies like that? Philip's new look sitting at a desk, and his old look in a picture frame behind him. And no matter what the season is, have it changed with it. They always keep that picture in the background.
I love it.
You're like Dorian Gray.
I love it. Dorian Gray. Philip, the new Philip.
I actually have a question too. Philip, regarding the groups, can we get more? Please.
You'd like to have more people, more groups?
Yeah, more groups, yeah. It's always filled up, and I would love to join so much more, but it's not possible. And yes, I have a pro account since years, but no, it's not enough.
Okay.
And it's super good having you back.
Is there, I guess one thing I would ask is there any downside to letting people join like an infinite number of groups?
Can I just say that land being associated with groups is something that should actually be looked at more so, because if you're a content creator or you're involved in communities, sometimes 11 of the groups that you have are just because so you can res things for an event you're in, or because you need to pay rent somewhere, and that just sucks up all your groups.
Gotcha.
Groups should be social and more engaging, but you've got everything associated with land. So maybe look at how to free up land not needing so much group space.
Two types of groups or something.
I have to say something.
Okay, thank you. And then what were you going to say?
This is Ruby, and I get what everybody's saying. I've been here since 2008, but recently I created a little avatar just to try. I got hacked. I got phished. I got hit with $259.99 through my PayPal Linden Lab twice, and I had two premium plus counts on top of that premium. So I'm a little bit upset about this sort of stuff. I understand where you guys are coming from, and yeah, sure, have a group over there for your designers, because I used to help estate people where they would set up houses, and I would set their houses on there, and I had to have groups for each land. I get that. Have a group for that. And I understand where you need more groups because you want to do it. And the reason why that's about is because a lot of these new freebie groups are making you join their groups to get on their freebie stuff. You could go through the subscribers. You can't do that anymore. But and thank you, Linden Lab, for fixing that and getting the money back from me. But the hassle from it is, like, I have a mortgage tomorrow. I was worried about losing my mortgage. So,
I'm really sorry that happened.
I am really upset about the fact, I'm glad you could do in the mobile, but I don't like the fact that the mobile has access to getting in here, that they could go in here and they could hack somebody's account and take it like they did mine.
I'm sorry that happened, Ruby. If there's anything more that we need to do that you need help with, feel free to email me
But I
about it.
ended up having to cancel all my premium accounts, give up all my land, all my house. I had 3 houses. I had to give them all up there. I had to cancel I had to get a new debit card. I had to contact PayPal, my bank, and then on top of everything, now I have to go through a friend to go through another way to pay for her tier. And I can't pay to get Linden's in here because I can't use my PayPal because I'm afraid this person's going to hack into my account again.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm seeing people saying, 1, Ruby, thank you. Email me if you need additional help. 2, people are talking about multi-factor authentication. I do think we need to do more options for that, but we do have that on the accounts now, so you can set up multi-factor authentication to make it much more secure. So I'd invite everybody to consider that. Yeah, I think we also need, if I'm not mistaken, I think we have authenticator-based MFA, but not like just second device, text message-based MFA.
It did not save me, though. It did not save me.
Do it. Well, I'm sorry about that, Ruby.
I had an idea, Philip, the other day when I was seeing all these reports about theft and stuff like that. A lot of people use an alt account as a bank account, like they put all their money in an alt and then they cash it out. I was wondering if you would ever consider giving people the option to lock accounts so money can't go out of them other than to a designated account. So if you had an alt account, all your splits for your vendors, say, could go to that account automatically. That account cannot have money come out of it except to the main account that you designate through the dashboard and so on.
That would be a really good idea.
As an extra security.
And I think many people tend to use another account too as their mule for their land, right? So that becomes another piece of it, and there are complexities with those of us who have like nonprofits because like there's no way to have a nonprofit account, there's no way to take donations and apply them out to something that, because the standard is that an account should be a person, and that person should have their individual tax ID and not an EIN. So it makes donations hard too. There's always been these weird little financial things behind the scenes that many of us kind of use these weird alt avatars as kind of ways, but still can't solve some of those things like that.
Yeah, obviously the thing with alt accounts as well is that it makes it difficult for us to reckon different aspects of things we're doing right or wrong. I can totally commiserate. Like one problem is, as we've been trying to figure out what we did wrong in the rendering and system more broadly with respect to the PBR changes that culminated in the Firestorm release that really dropped performance for everybody. The presence of the alt accounts is one of the things. This is a side point, but because alt accounts are used so many different ways, the usage of them and tracking usage, looking at alt accounts, is really tricky. It's an interesting problem that we've got. But yeah, thanks for that feedback. I got you.
Philip.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say,
Philip.
so some other visual network things like VR chat, for example, they have over time you gain rank systems like trusted user. If we were to bring in something like that to Second Life, so the older users who've been here for some time would get benefits, for example, more groups and things like that, and be the ability to gain access to stuff that was more, advanced, or some of the stuff you're bringing in, which stops some of the users who are sort of newer having access to things that they maybe could use in a malicious way. It would allow people who come onto the platform to want to stay longer because they're going to gain these things and feel like they're leveling up in Second Life, but also keep users who are new from using these items in malicious ways. So we're not being punished for users who are coming in a negative light.
So basically, what you're saying broadly is look at the degree to which tenure in Second Life or age in Second Life can be tied to capabilities.
I would say, as well as your standing within Second Life, your communication, the groups that you're in, things that you've done in Second Life, have you had abuse reports thrown at you, things like that would kind of give you like a secret hidden rating, if you would, for your avatar and what you've done within the platform, and as such you would gain access to certain things that maybe other avatars wouldn't, due to your standing within the platform.
Yeah, let me say one thing about ranking in general. If I could just carry on a bit about this, because it's one of my favorite design areas and one that we've explored quite a bit with Fair Share. I don't know how many people saw that crazy Black Mirror episode called Nosedive. Probably a lot of people here, right? It's pretty funny. I always say to people, if you're a systems designer and you haven't seen several Black Mirror episodes, but certainly Nosedive, you just need to stop what you're doing right now and go and do that before you continue writing software and potentially causing harm. But Nosedive actually shows a rating system that is not right, but it actually begs a question about what the right kind of rating system would be. So as other folks have said here in the chat already, global rating systems can always, and let me start. This is my opinion as a designer, so I'm not certain of this, but let me tell you what I think. Global reputation systems, that is to say something like how many friends you have, how many groups you've joined, how many dollars you spent or something like that. Things that are based on activity that is kind of measured at a global scale and then applied to create a rating are deeply problematic, because you can always reverse engineer the system and then cheat, right? You always see this with things like Twitter or, Google Ads or whatever. If you're using a public system that has a global algorithm, everybody is going to abuse it and harm each other in a variety of different ways. That said, I actually think there's a way to do reputation and ratings that is group-based. The best technical description of it is what's called web of trust. A web of trust is when so imagine that right now I have 100 friends in Second Life. I think I have more than that, but so say I have 100 friends in Second Life. Every time I meet a new person, the data question I should be able to ask is, what do my 100 friends think of this person? Like, as it relates to, say, their building skills or their trustworthiness. What do my friends actually think? That's what's called a web of trust approach, where you don't have a global score, but you have a way of accessing what the people that you trust think of another person, group, whatever. And that mechanism creates a kind of a graph of data about how people trust each other that is not at all easy to cheat. In fact, I think it's formally impossible. So this is the reason why webs of trust and kind of community-based or group-based local reputation systems are the right way to do things. And yeah, I'm seeing somebody say it. There's a bunch of grassroots ways in which this has already been done, just by the very fact that local communities in Second Life have so much have so much important standing. Like what the neighborhood you're in may sanction you for something you've done, for example, in a way that doesn't require the opinion of a global company or anyone else, to adjudicate. So I think that local web of trust-based reputation systems are something that we should be thinking about as a way of creating more trust, say particularly in people that are coming in newer. I also agree with what somebody else said in there, which is I don't want to just tie standing to tenure because it's classist. We don't want to just say that just because you've been in Second Life for 10 years, you're a better person than everybody else. So I think there's a kind of a trade-off there. But I think this web of trust way can be used very broadly to do a lot of very sensible things, not just in Second Life, by the way, but in the world more broadly. Yeah, graph database of trust. Thank you. Somebody just typed that. That's a more technically correct term.
So I have something I wanted to ask.
Sure. Go ahead.
This is Marcus Llewellyn.
Hi, Marcus.
Hi.
No way. Nice to hear your voice.
Thank you. So I was just curious, and I realized if we need evidence that you got a lot on your plate, this was it. But just the same, I was wondering about the viewer and performance, and we're still, if I'm not mistaken, we're still using OpenGL here, and I understand to a degree why, because as you've said previously, we want to include as many users as we possibly can. But isn't there going to come a point where relying on OpenGL is just no longer a reliable path, that you can only kick that can so far down the road?
Yeah, that's right. I think that's, Marcus, I think that's the problem. It's one of the problems we have to contemplate in thinking about how to move forward on the viewer. Going back to accessibility, I think the fact that we just crash so often in OpenGL, as one does when you write a completely custom engine on top of, you know, a very, very sophisticated, you know, rendering, you know, system of any kind, means that I think we're just sort of crashing too much by you know, through the fact that we have a very, very sophisticated rendering challenge in front of us. So I think the question, though, Marcus, is, yeah, as we look at ways to, you know, say modernize our use of OpenGL or get off of it entirely or get onto another engine, we just have to be mindful of what I said earlier, which is that the population of people that we're useful for includes a lot of people who don't build water-cooled gaming PCs at home for fun. You know, I think that we have to be mindful of the fact that gamers, who are a really unique bunch in their interest in understanding and working with very advanced, you know, hardware and drivers and all that stuff, you know, they're a subset of folks in Second Life, but they're not at all. I don't even think they're a majority. I think that we've got a majority of people who probably would rather not bother a lot with, you know, learning about the latest NVIDIA driver release. I hope I'm not closing. Yeah.
This is North here. I have
Hold on,
a
Cody.
question. I have a question about the state of Linden Lab there. So recently it was sold to a holding company that which Brad apparently owns now. What is the future for Linden Lab going forward now it's been held by a holding company?
Great question. So about 4 years ago, the company was bought by Brad Oberwalker and Randy Waterfield. Brad is a close personal friend of mine for a long time, as folks have probably heard before. So it's been a kind of not a standard kind of private equity deal because, you know, the participants are people that are deeply interested in and invested in what we're doing, and one of them a personal friend of mine. Although I know Randy as well, but not nearly so well as I know Brad. I think that really, though, from the standpoint of the business and our ability to do things and our ability to grow, hasn't really had like that much of an impact. The transition of ownership from the original, you know, venture capitalists and employees, you know, who own stock in the company, to the company as it stands today, which is, you know, it still has, you know, stock. I think somebody asked, one of the questions was, do I own stock in the company? Yes, I do. Simple answer. I do own stock in Second Life myself. I think that things don't look a lot different. I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're a much better operating business today with much higher profits, and so we have the ability to invest in ourselves in ways that we didn't, and that's thanks to Brad and Randy and the team. Like a lot of the work that's been done over the last few years. So we're pretty well set up to act like a startup going forward and do marketing to accelerate growth and, you know, reinvest in, you know, new capabilities like what we're talking about, you know, like more accessibility, maybe different types of viewers. We can do all those things. So we're in a pretty good spot, and, you know, I'd say we look like a very successful small private, you know, kind of startup in terms of, you know, where we are and what we're able to do. So yeah, go ahead. Thanks. Cody, I can't hear you after I have an island. That was the first part I got out of that. I still didn't quite get that. If anybody else, if anyone understands Cody and can type that for me, go for it, or is standing a little closer. But yeah, I'm listening.
I have a question if you have a second, Philip.
Open up the what?
Hang on one second. Yeah, let me try to hear Cody, here. You need help opening up your island?
Open up the RNC to the island?
Oh. Oh, got it, got it. So Cody, is that what you're asking about, connecting islands to the mainland?
Yeah, can you help me connect my island to the mainland?
Okay. Let me actually think about that. Let me, Cody, let me come back. I'm just writing a note right now about this. I've got definitely a few actionable things here. Can we connect existing islands to mainland? I think that's actually a really interesting question that I've never. Could I make it? Could I make it? I heard you say that. Could I make it? Or make the seas? Yes, I see somebody saying make the seas sailable or flyable. I know. I was, whenever I look at the Second Life map, I have that thought. I'm like, that'd be so cool.
Second Life Norway are kind of examples that are already being done.
Yeah.
There's no formal process.
Yep. Yep. Let me think about that, and thank you broadly for that, Cody. And let me think more about connecting directly to the mainland. And then let me shift to somebody. Somebody started to ask me a question there while Cody was last talking. Who was that?
I think that was probably me.
Yep.
Question about kind of the future of kind of just new kind of 3D rendering things coming to Second Life. From my perspective as a creator and builder, I'm more excited about like some of the stuff coming from GOTF, like punctual lights and GOTF scene import. With that coming with custom bones, custom animations, and basically bringing Second Life into the year 2024 instead of Second Life 2008, which is where it is kind of right now, because it almost feels very limiting and restrictive to what I can do in Second Life versus to what I can do in pretty much any other 3D content platform.
Yeah.
So I know we've already got kind of the PBR, which is kind of like the step one of modernizing Second Life. Where do you see kind of as a vision-wise as far as, you know, when we're getting like GOTF scene import, HDRI skies for better lighting, punctual lights for better lighting that way, global illumination from like say like Pixelizer and that kind of things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I agree with you on the content creation side that expanding to broad standards like GLTF is definitely directionally correct for sure. That said, as I mentioned earlier, I think one of the challenges, understandably, in the past, what we've done is we've added new capabilities, like take GLTF as a new format, right? Like imagine that we have GLTF done and we have animations and bones and rigging and, you know, everything that's in GLTF, right? I think one of the challenges we've historically made is what we tend to do, understandably, is we deploy that new capability alongside backwards compatibility with all the other capabilities. And that causes this problem that I mentioned earlier, which I don't know how to solve yet, but I'm just saying it out loud because it's what I'm thinking about and what I think we all need to be thinking about as we debate this stuff and be sensitive to, is that if we're going to ultimately fail if we just add new things like GLTF without taking anything out, and we just add them right next to everything else, because it's like the bodies that we touched on earlier. Bodies are now much more compelling in the way that you can build your avatar in Second Life, but it's made the whole thing way harder, and it was already excruciatingly hard. So we've got to figure out how to somehow add these global standards like GLTF, but do it in a way that both doesn't kick off 30% of our users or something, and then on the performance side, and then two, as you're talking about, presents those options in a way that reduces overall complexity in the UX. And that's the thing that I'm not really sure how best to do, but we're going to figure it out. You know, we're going to look at what our approaches, what our strategies are going forward to, you know, building entirely different ways of experiencing Second Life and using stuff that's more modern and more standards-based, right? I mean, the ideal, what we all want, right, is to have the rendering look as modern as possible, right? Like look like Unreal or something, right? Just totally, you know, everything works. Use all these standard formats so that the most content out there can do it. But the problem is that we, you know, the problem is we can't do that if we add more complexity to the existing UX. So that's the thing that I'm I'm
Yeah, I think that's why I'm
scared
really
about.
excited about stuff, because it allows for that type of separation where the main viewer can really you can really have a much more simpler UX in the viewer, but then for all those of us for content creation who need those much more complex controls, let us have those in Blender, Maya, 3ds, Houdini, whatever, can have those complex controls. We do all the complex things. GOTF, if we expand on that, lets us input that into Second Life. And in Second Life, the end user can just use a much more simplified UI, and then you allow both groups to kind of really express themselves.
Though I think you have to be mindful, though. I think you have to be mindful, though, that you do not want to take content creation away from every user, at least in some way, because that is, I think, another special sauce of Second Life, right?
Right.
Like that magic of creating. So otherwise you end up down the same path as Sansar, right? And you've gone that way.
One of the things I'm curious about, by the way, sitting with a group like this in that regard, is what do you all think about, like, imagine if you could use AI not to build content, but to suggest content. Like, imagine if you could, for example, imagine if you could say something like, imagine if you could describe a place, like you could just say, I want to be sitting in a forest with a creek and a campfire and the following sort of avatar, right? And imagine if AI was able to actually do that using, basically find you stuff in the world and then instantly, create things out of it for you. I wonder whether that might not be compelling given how hard positioning and, finding things is.
It certainly would probably be neat, but you still would have to weigh that against performance issues and cutting into the creator marketplace angle too.
Well, what I'm talking about is something where you'd actually be, I'm struck by the fact that although sometimes people have used AI to kind of replace creators or whatever, in different market segments, like in gaming or whatever, you don't actually have to do that. You could use AI to simply shop, basically, right? You know what I mean? Like I could say, build something for me by looking at everything in the marketplace, but then I'm still ultimately buying all that stuff from the marketplace creators. You know what I mean? Like if I said I want a tiki hut, from stuff that's actually available from content creators. And what if AI did the selection of that? The AI was like your butler or something that was like, well, I've bought.
So it still would be pulling from existing marketing.
Yeah, it'd be using that.
Yeah.
Because like so many people are doing direct prompt to 3D work right now, including many of my friends in AI. But it's hard, as you all know. I mean, like doing an actual good job of making 3D content directly from AI, we're not even there yet, not at all. So it's interesting to think about other ideas. And I'm going to have to go in. Let me tell everybody, I'm going to have to go in about 2 minutes. So one more talk.
The problem with making AI a part of the shopping experience is what would the selection process be based on? If it's keywords or something similar, it's gonna be gamed, and instead of the tiki hut you wanted, you'll end up with a penis on top of your head.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Sure.
Otherwise you have to have
Fair
sort
point.
of image recognition to figure out what the AI thinks it's seeing.
Well, I asked for free things.
I
and
also-
people putting out other free things.
Yeah. I also wonder about whether we can do a better job of buying and exploring and shopping and stuff in world as compared to the marketplace. I don't know what the split looks like there, but that's one of the, again, just saying out loud, one of the interesting design pattern questions that I continue to have is like, we've got two parallel paths for shopping. One of them's in world and one of them's in marketplace, and I don't know what that means, but it feels complicated to me. It's one of the things that I'm just like, wow.
In the marketplace with limited or demos, they still put it out there. You can't, even if you check not to see it, you still put it out there.
How does that compare? How does that compare your marketplace data versus in world?
I'm not sure. I could get back to you on that. If you ask me that in email, I might be able to give you an answer. I'm not sure. One more question from the gentleman who just started talking.
Yes. What if, because I heard someone earlier say that don't take away building rights for everyone and building capabilities. What if you had to unlock it by going through a certain amount of classes to prove that you're not using your building capabilities to like troll or spam or something like that? Like you can't unlock the abilities to build until you can prove yourself that you can actually do it yourself?
Let me answer that by saying I think you're onto something in the sense that, and I'm going to go back to my previous answer. If as communities we had ways of like giving people marks of approval, almost like Better Business Bureau, which is exactly the way you're in the way that you're suggesting, like you've taken a course or something and you've validated yourself as being able to responsibly use creation tools. I love that idea. I think that the way to enable that, and which is maybe what I'm hoping to do with this group and have some kind of experimental stuff we do in the group, is to play with governance techniques that would get us a kind of a bottom-up way of doing that. What I mean by that is, I don't think you should have to prove to the Lindens that you're a trustworthy builder to be allowed to build. I think that would be a mistake, because that'll be that gaming global algorithm problem I mentioned earlier. But I think your idea can be deployed at the level of, for example, groups, and using a mechanism where, you know, if you don't have the Better Business Bureau seal of approval or whatever, you might not be able to get as many jobs building houses for people or something like that. So I think there's a way to do that, like bottom up from the group perspective rather than top down from the whole company. And I'm going to have to, I'm sorry, I've got to run because I've got to jump into a meeting with Brad in a few minutes. And although he is only a few feet away from me, I need to use the bathroom and get a little food before I do that. So it's really been nice to talk to everybody. I deeply appreciate the time
thank
here.
you. It's been nice.
Thank you so much for staying longer. And please join that group of mine, and we'll get together much sooner. You will see. All right, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
It's so nice to be back. It's so nice to be back.
About that, on my college campus website, they have a thing that you watch the video, and once you do the video and you take the test, it's like a little test thing like that. They give you a completion. It says you completed it with your name. They can do that with your avatar name and the date on there. And the Better Business Bureau could do that with you probably, because they do that with our college, and that gets the new students that come into their able to know what the rules are of the game or rules of the school.
Yeah, but what I was saying is like, some people can just go through SL and not want to build, you know, and that's fine. Some people want to like dance or hang out with friends or race cars. That's fine. But to do something, I don't want to say important because that sounds rude, but something that's impactful.
That you're interested in.
Yeah, like
people leave, but
you have to like.
Surprised if they came back after they realized, oh, it's still going.
Yeah, well, Building Story does a really great thing of teaching, and he puts the classes down. And then there's the Hippo school too, you know. And there's a lot of schools out there for different people that speak different languages, you know.
Yeah, the problem isn't like being able to build. It's should it be kind of like suppressed so that not everyone can just like res a prim out and put scripts in it that blows up half the sim, you know?
Yeah, though the percentage, I mean, to believe it or not, right, there were days where you would get like repetitive object attacks and objects would fill a region. Like gone are those days. So, and so I think you have to weigh it with security versus the idea, though, that there is a bit of magic that, like, if you want to actually keep people here, right, it comes down to social and community, and then also for a good percentage of people, the ability to build. And some people, that first, oh my God, I just rezzed a prim is the part of that magic, right? Yeah. And even if it's just like, you know, the first thing I did was like, oh my God, I'm going to take my real life artwork and I'm going to put it on a prim. I'm going to texture a thing, and it's like sounds so simple, but that little box is what stuck me.
I can take a picture of myself inside of something green.
No, I get it. I make stuff myself, like all the time. I'm tinkering with stuff. And,
yeah.
Like, I love
sure
it.
many of us here
the
do.
fact that I'm also a sim owner, and I come from the days pre-mesh, and I know what you're talking about, things will like, razz out and like take out the whole sim. That's my fear of somebody bringing that back, and by limiting the ability to build, it's like a double-edged sword. It's like, yes, you get security, but you don't get that magic at the same time.
And there's something else to consider too. I think that's very important, is that building tools are not just for creators. How many times have any of us had to adjust their hat using building tools or a HUD? So, you know, these are things, and sure, they can be scripted, but even that isn't always perfect, right? So unfortunately, it's just too bound up into.
Yeah, that is true.
I think
Yeah.
that was a very interesting idea to, have people kind of qualify via a learning process, but it does end up not being practical because I would say the majority of residents really do not build, create, or anything like that. And if the goal is to keep out griefers, they're generally more advanced and they can
Yeah.
only do a task like that. They'll just go through, but then they plop out a scripted prim, and clutter a sim.
Let's put the RAM to say no script for if you're not in the group, you know?
The only critical thing with griefers is probably a time-based, hey, have you been at least around for a week kind of thing, because a lot of them are just, they want to
SWANK has it where you have to be in game for over so many days or you can't even get on your sim.
Yeah, a lot of games do that. I think
exactly. Already there's some.
that would be a great tool. I think also a lot of games do that actually, where